Okay, people, I am here with Russell Owens, the director of Shepherd. Russell, I really appreciate you giving me your time. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. So I believe Shepherd is your second feature film. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I've been going around saying it's like it's my first because the first one I made, and I come off a load of commercials and things like that. The first one I made, I didn't write the script, I got this script, and I had about 3.5, 4 weeks before we had to shoot something with no cast, no location. And we really fired into it and made something. I mean, we were all quite proud of it. It was a very beautiful film, but it just didn't reflect who I was. It didn't have my voice. And Shepherd, I wrote it when I was at uni. So, I got my first draft date, it was 21. And obviously it's changed quite a bit since then. But it feels like my first film still, because even when I watched it on screen, I mean, I've written quite a lot of stuff, obviously in the hope that I'd be able to make more in the future, and you can see how I've changed even since writing that first draft and the structure. But it was lovely because it was something I was extremely proud of from day one, and it sets the tone for what I want to do moving forward.
Oh, damn. Right, if this sets the tone for what's coming next, I don't know, man. I don't know, because that was a creepy ass film.
Oh, really?
Not sure my nerves are gonna be handling anything else.
It's nerve-wracking for me because you guys were the first people ever to see it. I mean, apart from sales agents and distributors and people who've worked on the film, I've had absolutely no outside opinion or anything. I've had a couple of people that've seen a link and have done a write-up. And they were all really, really glowing, which was great. But, sometimes you don't know because, films are like chalk and cheese. You've no idea. Some people just don't like eating cheese. So it's a complete panic.
People enjoy eating chalk.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Good for digestion, apparently. But yeah, oh, good. Well, I'm glad you that was the intention to be creepy.
Yeah, I think the sentiment in the room was everyone seemed to really enjoy it. Right? I didn't hear I've been in bad rooms, right? I've been.
So have I, and that's why I didn't want to be in that room.
Hey, you should have stayed, man. You should have had that confidence because, there were no groans, there were no can't believe or anything like that. Everyone seemed very wrapped in what was going on.
Oh well, that's good. That's positive.
I mean, how honest are sales agents? Like when they're the ones that may get to critique a film, because I say how honest, because not to say sales agents are liars, but they're looking at things in a completely different lens, I feel, sometimes than a general person who's going to the cinema for enjoyment. They're looking at, can we monetize that, and what markets will this sell in?
Yeah. It's interesting. This year I've worked on and off in film production for about 16, 17 years now, and with other people's films. And we have film festival and markets, and some of the things that sales agents look for. Has it got X, Y, and Z? Can it tick several boxes? And they always try and condense what a film is onto a piece of paper that they can sort of do percentages and all sorts of things. You get some which are extremely glowing and you're not sure whether you trust them or not. And there are some which are absolutely, it's bizarre. With Shepherd, we had to try and find a sales agent, and there was so much interest. I'd never had that before. And we whittled it down to like 10, which was amazing. I couldn't even get 10 in the past to even look at it. based on a trailer and things like that we'd sent out. And 9 of them really fought for it. Some were a little bit more casual, saying we'll go bundle it in with another couple of horrors that we've got, and we'll just sort of, do a package sell to a streamer or something. Others really listened to what I intended for the film. I mean, I did make it for the big screen. I mean, that's why we went up to the island. I mean, if I wanted it to just maybe be a TV thing, it would have been a different structure. I might have, filmed somewhere much easier, which has got some nice hills, a bit of sea. But we really pushed the boundaries on it, because I did have always in mind that 2:3:9 aspect ratio on a big CinemaScope screen, because my strength as a creative is trying to build atmosphere, and there's no better place to do that than in a cinema, because once you've got a captive audience that aren't playing on their phones, or they've got the kettle on in the background or anything like that, you can then go to town on what you want to do. And some of the sales agents were very much, they didn't sort of understand that. They were looking at where, it could go financially, and streamers. Parkland, who we went with in the end, were very much supportive of what I want to do, and they've achieved that theatrical release, and all the sales that they're doing abroad is based on theatrical, which is a difficult time to be doing it anyway. But there was one guy who absolutely, and bearing in mind they saw a rough cut beginning, no special effects, anything like that.
Right.
And he was really cutting. I mean, I won't go into detail on what he said, but I deflated very quickly after that call. But I mean, 9 out of 10 who had the opposite reaction. That was good, at least. But yeah, I mean, it's a funny one. Parkland have actually been quite straight down the line, and they've been really good. And I think that's quite unique for a sales agent. Other sales agents are quite honest in the fact that this is how they see something, they'll bundle it in. And if they're wrong, you only find out, further down the line. But if you're wrong, you'll find out pretty quickly too. So I've realised they're all very different. But that was a fun process at the beginning of the year, hearing people's opinions as well. They were the first people to see it outside of myself and the editor and Gwyn, my colorist. So yeah, that was bizarre, but it was good. It was an experience.
It must be weird though, showing people your film that you've worked on, but then still not the complete finished version of it. So you're having to be like, right, this is a scaffolding of, but remember, we haven't done this and we haven't done it. So you have to visualize that. You have to kind of sell that to someone and hope that when they, critique it, when they feed back to you, they are imagining those things, and they're not just, talking about it as what they're seeing at that moment in time.
Exactly. That's a funny one, and it's a good question, because the way I work, it's the finished article which has the entire package. So the sounds which tell a story, and a little bit of music I've got in mind that will tell a story. And when that's not in there, you just see a shot of something, so you're not sure how to, as long as I get the story and the performances down and the shots the rest of it is in my head, but they want to see it before you put that in. And there's certain VFX and things that need to go in. So they're seeing it with none of the sound design, which is, 50% of a horror film, because, that's where your atmosphere and, and some of your direction will come from. No VFX, and there were quite a lot in it. Even, some of them are VFX. There are a lot of VFX in there which you wouldn't know are VFX. Because they did such a really lovely job, and things like there were houses that needed to be rubbed out in the background, and pylons and all sorts of to make it look like it was a deserted island. Because even if you go that far off, and even filming on an actual island, you're still going to do all that kind of stuff, and that took months to do that. And so they were seeing lots of little elements which are not there now, which tell a different story and show you well. But I had confidence, and a good sales agent's able to. They see lots of films all the time, and they should focus on story and performance. And I think because some of my story wasn't there with sound design, and I'd explained that. The response was still positive, but it's nerve-wracking to send something which is unfinished out because, like I say, one or two, as I've had, will be really cutting about it, and then they'll probably come back and go, "Oh, I see what you meant now." I was like, "Well, it's too, because if only I could have showed you." But they insist on seeing something very early. But the good ones can definitely see through it all and use their imagination, which is useful.
Yeah. Do you sometimes maybe create a playlist to accompany it? And so you can be like, this isn't the soundtrack, but these kind of speak to the moments of the scene kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is Edwin and Callum, who did the sound and music, they did a little taster. And they also did sound design and music for a promo trailer that I'd sent out for sales. So they had they got an idea of how everything was going to sound and the vibe that they were going to give across. And then I'd send a couple of examples as well over. I think one of them was like Hans Zimmer, the American Ring that he'd scored. There was something similar to that, and there was a few other bits and bobs. That we sent over and said this is the direction that we're going with, and so we sent as much as we could just so that they understood that we were. And I think that all really a sales agent should also know is at an early stage that you're serious and you're going somewhere. You're dedicated to it and you're going to polish it up the best you can, which any filmmaker if I had the opportunity now, I'd still be working on it. That'd be it. But for the next not a problem. Sit there doing all sorts of things.
Yeah. It's funny you said that because I will say a film like this, it definitely speaks on the performances from everyone involved, so I think a lot of props have to go to Tom Hughes, Greta Scacchi, Kate Dickey, Greta Wise. But I also kind of feel if you were giving out a supportive, a supporting, actor award, I feel the sound people need to get that award because you know what I mean? Like the performances were fantastic, but the sound, oh my god! Like
you only heard it in stereo because of the we had a tech issue on the day, and I was devastated. But I've said a few times. There's always this thing that people say. You write a film 3 times. You write the script, then you shoot it, so you're writing it as you shoot it, and then you edit it, so you're rewriting it as you edit it. But with horror, it's 4 times because you've got sound and music to go in that, and that's so important in a horror. I think more so than most genres, because that's another element you really do need to focus on. And every second and every frame of that was designed, and there was a lot of back and forth. But they really did. What was great about those guys, my job as a director is to explain to dozens of people who are actually making the film what I want, and if I explain it well, then I'll get it. And thankfully, after 10 years doing commercials, I kind of figured a way, but I do blab on for a long time, so I could see Edwin and Callum's face going, "What?" And I'm like, well, it's kind of like this. And have you seen that? And then you put in and I remember Callum once going, "What do you?" I'm like, "What do you want?" And I'd sent over a few and they said, "Okay, what we're going to do." They were amazing. They didn't just jump into sound libraries and things like that. They went and got a ferry to an island somewhere in Dorset, and they were recording different engines of ferries. Then they were on this island by themselves doing wind and metal and all sorts of things. And then they were upscaling that, and we were doing things like recording things and then playing them into big rooms and recording the playback to put back in. So they're really, really creative and went to town on it. And And yeah, I'm over the moon. Really proud of those guys.
It works so well. Works so well. Because I think an issue I have sometimes with TV and film, right, is the I don't know. I'm going to say the condescension, right? Because you get music, but it's like, guys, this is a happy moment. The happy music, get the happy music, or sad music. Oh, feel sad now, people, and you're just like, God, I get it. I can get it from their actions. I don't need this music to tell me I'm sad. You know what I mean? And so the ones that really work is where the music fits the scene, obviously, but it's not overtly smashing you over the head going, this is sad, but it's just, it ups the tempo, right? It feels in sync with what you're seeing visually. It's like synchronized friggin' swimming, you know what I mean? It just works in tandem with everything, and so it's hard to see that separation from one to the other. It just feels like a whole, and that's one thing with this. It really meshed and embedded itself. So then you're seeing things. It's just like there was, oh my days, that scene where I think the second time he's going up the stairs, and I don't know the technical terms. I think I said, the scene where you elongate the stairs scene, but the stairs, and they just look like, and then the music and everything, and just like you feel the anxiety of Eric in that moment, and it's just like, oh shit.
Yeah. Well, what was great about those guys as well, I said, I mean, Christopher Nolan tends to do it a lot with whoever he works with. I think Dunkirk was an example I shared, where like the sound of the engine or something like that will get integrated into the music. And it's a perfect way of doing things. I think all the creaking of the house, so we wanted it to feel like a ship because it's a windy island. And I've actually been in a house in Wales where you go in and even just the slightest breeze, the whole thing had turned into an instrument, and it'd be creaking and rocking and whistling. And so that's where that came from. And they integrated all that very subtly into the music. So rather than just, putting up a big sort of orchestra to sort of tell you what that moment is, the sound design itself will come in and help with a tone or something, and some creaking metal will actually be what is the soundtrack of the music rather than the sound. So you're it embeds itself into the environment, because the whole brief from day one is a sense of place. So when you go off that, you come up with new ideas. And it's interesting you mentioned that Vertigo scene, because that's been in the character of Eric I base on somebody that I know and his mother, and his vertigo was it comes straight from that person that I know. And I struggled with it because obviously that entire staircase is CGI, and it was really completely rebuilt. There was we tried to do it practically and do all sorts of like Hitchcock style trombone shots, and we weren't really, and we had a crane and we couldn't quite figure it. And I said, okay, well, we need it to bend. And then the guys came back with a CGI, the first look, and I was like, yeah, how did it? It did a really, really good job of it. And we didn't put too much of it in the film. It was only just a subtle thing to sort of, and then we moved on. He's got vertigo, and we realise why he's struggling with heights, and that, maybe he's tripping, maybe he's not really there. So it's that everybody had to come on board to really make that work, from the camera to the CGI to the sound, and obviously Tom's performance to sort of put it off. But yeah, it's and I think because it was one of those scenes I struggled with. I think Quentin Tarantino said, if you're struggling with something, just go to town on it and throw everything at it until it works. And we spent a lot of time. And then I was really happy once I'd seen that. I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to work. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it really did. It like all the different. I kind of thought that. Well, I'm interested. When you shot this, did you storyboard the film?
Yeah, I storyboard I used to be a storyboard artist before I became a director, which is a great way of getting in because you have to work with directors, you have to learn your stage and everything. So you work close to the directors and DOP, and I am very sort of graphic novelly in that sense. I mean, our storyboard. So I think there was about 2,900 frames I storyboarded for this. I did all the major scenes. I did before we shot it, and then I would go home every night, and then I'd be up until about 11, 12, storyboarding the next day's scenes, and then I'd have to photograph them, scan them in, and then I'd send them to study DOP, and I'd send them to Tom because Tom always liked to know what I do because Tom likes to sort of block things out. And then we shoot that. But he also knew that I had some specific shots. So if he got an idea in advance, he'd know. So I just drew everything, and it's great because it just makes the day go so much easier because you just know exactly where you're going to be.
Yeah, I mean that makes so much sense because it really felt that there was an economy of motion in everything you saw. Like there was no flab on the film. Everything that you see tells a story, right? It tells a story of what happened or the character of someone or the sentiment of that moment. There is nothing in here that would just seem like, oh, it's a throwaway, it's a filler. Like everything was moving the story and your emotions forward. So that's why I kind of wondered your approach because it's just like, how do you do that if you turn up and you're just like in your head, you're just thinking, oh, we'll do that scene now, or we'll just do that scene. It just like, man, it just seemed like, oh, this is kind of crazy.
Again, when you storyboard things out as well, you can then see the film and you can see where things might go wrong or something. It's like, okay, well, to fix that, we need this prop in and we need that, and this is the moment when that happens, and you can just draw it all in. So then you've just got a foundation to work from when you get to shooting it. And, everybody had a slightly different brief. So, I'd tell Tom one thing about the character, I'd tell Stoddy, the DOP, something else. So he would move things the way, and understand what I'd want from that side of things. And then Chris Richmond, the production designer, and all the props guys in the art department would understand something else. So they would dress each scene when they see it. They go in and change the time on the clock, or they do something so that there's always a little bit of story somewhere when you look around and explore the screen. As I do. I mean, I'm one of those people. If I watch a film a second time, I'm looking at everything else and I'm going, oh, well, that's. And I'm always looking for continuity errors. That's like a hobby. And there was a few in this, and me and having a heart attack. Like I remember there's a mic dip there. We managed to rub it out and things, but we didn't notice this mic dipping in. And I'd watched the film about 200 times, and then one day I just sat there watching it on a different screen. I'm, what is that? And there's a mic. We need to rub the mic. It was just like loads of, and there's still one or two in. You've got apparently there's a rule, and I can't remember what Gwyn called it, but after a while you have to leave a couple of your errors in because it's like a traditional thing. I so there'll still be something I spot further down. And some people will watch it for the first time, spot it straight away because I can't see the woods for the trees. I'm focused on everything else. But yeah.
So what was the conversation you had with the actors, right? How much time did you spend with them before, you started to film it? Because again, everyone hit, right? There was no weak performances. There was no, like they were good, but not as good as them. Like everyone brought that same energy to this. And it really, oh my days, it really worked. Is it like there's characters who you at one point you feel bad for, and then you're like, wait, hold on, what the fuck? Yeah. And it's just like your emotions on everyone shift so many times throughout, and they give you all of those different looks.
Yeah. I'm just really, really lucky to get my ideal cast. I mean, I remember drawing all the cast down, and we went out a list of cast to go out to everybody to check availability, see if who's free to do it. And some of the names on there were insane. I was like, we can't afford these people. What on earth is going on? You know, like proper big Hollywood stars. And they were coming back saying they'd love to do it, but can we push it back a month? And can we do this? And can we all this? And I just went, these people are actually interested, having read the script, which was I'll gobsmacked. I mean, there's a lot of people who would, you know, just not even bother getting back, or agents like it's a no, or there's a conflict. It was amazing. But on the top of the list, and particularly like Gemma Sykes, the casting director, Tom Hughes was there, and I remember day one she's like, Tom Hughes, and I'd only seen him in a couple of things. Like I think I don't watch much TV. He does lots of. He did Victoria as Prince Albert on ITV, and he'd done a few bits. And I knew of him and I knew his work, but not anything like this. So I didn't quite understand where she was coming from. She was really adamant about him, and then she showed me an episode of Paula. I think I watched about 10 minutes. So it's like a BBC drama he was in. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, do you think he'd do it? And then he phoned up and that was it. And we met up and had a good hour and a half chat at first. And then he went through the script, and he's like a sponge. He just stares at you and whilst you're talking and just laps everything up. And then it does come straight out. He doesn't like to rehearse much. At all, actually. He does a read through and then just walk through, because what he's doing is building up what he wants to do, and try and get it out in the first couple of takes. So rather than start on a wide safely and then go in, I would always start in on Tom, because he really does, you know, build up something and then releases all his emotion in those first two takes. So I was barely doing more than 2 takes because he nailed it each time. And then we go back out to the wide, because then he knew his geography of the set and where he was going then, and the wide helps tell the story. But he's one of those actors that you know, you're going through his face and he's got so much story behind his eyes. He doesn't, you know, it doesn't feel like he's acting, like, you know, he was really going through the mill, and it just sort of like camera sitting on him was brilliant. And it's the same obviously with Kate Dickie, who's an incredible character actor, and I couldn't believe, you know, that we'd gotten her. Originally it was going to be a man, and I sat down with Gemma, and we had some amazing names, including like Jared Harris and all this coming up. And I was like, I really want to work with these actors, but I don't want them to play Captain Birdseye, because that's what a man's going to look like in that suit. You know, you're just going to put an eye patch on him, and I just thought, how do we mix it up? And I said, what about if it's a woman? We don't sexualize it or anything like that at all, or reference her gender. It just happens to be a woman instead of a man who drives this, get things like that. And immediately Kate Dickie was at the top of the list. So I thought, oh well, we're not going to get Kate Dickie. And then she said yeah, and then she phoned me, and we must have been on the home phone for about 3.5 hours, because she had so many ideas about it, and she had so many questions about where I was going with it. And I was giving each actor their own idea of what their character should be. And people like Greta had quite a difficult job, because she had to play the mother in one scene, and then a memory of the mother in another scene, and then you know, his imagination in it. So it was all but they had a clear brief, and you know, Greta Scacchi was an absolutely perfect casting. You know, she's a bit of a legend, acting legend in her own right, and so to get her, and she also looks a little bit like Tom, so you could believe she was his mum. And she went to she had the, you know, she said, give me a wig, give me, so no one reckoned, you know, give me all the dowdy clothing and everything. And we found that farm to put her on. And again, she just went to town on it. And I was just really, really lucky. And Gaia Vise, I'd known her for years. She's a really good friend. And I said to Gemma, I said, oh, I want Gaia to play this. So, oh, you're not going to get Gaia. She's like really busy. And probably like, oh, well, actually, she's a friend of mine. And she did. She jumped on a plane and did it. And that role was essential, because on the face of it, you think, okay, well, she's a villain and she's done all sorts of, you know, and like his mum says, you know, she's been having affairs and she's been doing all sorts of stuff. But that's your assumption, because that's just his mother's
Yeah.
opinion, as his mother talking, and that's his paranoia talking. We never actually meet his wife in real life. She's always a memory or something else. So she had a really interesting role. She's playing something really nice 1 minute, something really horrible the next, and then that gives costume and makeup, all sorts of different things to play with. So yeah, I mean, I'm just really, really lucky with the cast, and of course the crew. I mean, it's always a cliche to say, "Oh, it's great, and we were a family," but when you're stuck on an island with each other for 5 weeks, and then in a cold studio in Glasgow in middle of winter, and and storms and all sorts of stuff, you really do get. And they were just. They were so bloody good, and I worked with a lot of crews. I mean, really, really good crews over the years, but they all went to town, and they owned their own departments. They really did enjoy it and come back with lots of ideas and things. So, for the budget we had, and which we ran out of very quickly, it looks like it. We spent 3 times the amount on it because everybody just brought their A game, and it was great.
What happens when you run out of budget?
Oh, well, yeah, everybody gets very angry, including me. It was a nightmare. I mean, it really, it was a tough time because I think the production team had, they changed several times, and they hadn't anticipated all the, the contingencies needed to film on an island and all that kind of. So, as a director, I'm like, okay, can I have X, Y, and Z? And a producer will say, no, you can't. You can have this, X, But from their initial budget, they were like, yeah, no, this is all fine as long as nothing goes wrong. And then you throw in an island and a few tail end of a hurricane and all sorts of horrible things. And before you know it, but you get to the last week and you've got no money left. You've got all your post-production budgets on it, and it's like, oh God! But we managed to get through. Purely off the, just the crew really wanted to, finish it as well. So we figured it out, and it was, they're the ones who got it done, with me. And then, I went off and found, some budget, from somebody I knew to finish the post, as a loan. So yeah, I mean, I think it was just a challenge. Now everyone, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But I mean, we knew that was going to happen when we decided we're going to go to an island in Scotland in the middle of winter. in an area that the only thing that's been filmed around that part of the Isle of Mull is wildlife documentaries, because it's so cut off. There's tiny little bridges, you can't get trucks or anything over. So you've got to run things over bit by bit, and the base is miles away, and you can't have a toilet, or you can't have this, and you've got to, if anyone wants a toilet, there was a little minibus that did a toilet run. There's no tree you can go behind around or a rock. It was very barren and cold. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I know everyone should be really, really proud, because and a lot of people haven't seen it. A lot of the crew, only Tom and Kate have seen the film, so Greta and Guy are yet to see it, and all the crew have yet to see it. So, but I know they've seen the trailer and they're all quite excited.
Oh, Matt, like watching it, you wouldn't even imagine that there was budget issues or anything like that. Like it doesn't look like it's a low budget indie flick. It looks like just a big ass production. It's that quality that we're seeing on the screen. It's great. It's great. Like, I will say, right, there was only one thing I was like, oh, God damn it, like, why are they doing this to me?
Oh, no.
And that is I wasn't quite sure how to refer to it. I think I called it like title cards. It like in between
the chapters. Yeah.
Right, because it's just tiny writing. It's a huge screen. And there's tiny writing in the middle, and I couldn't see what it said, and I wanted to know what it said, and I'm just damn it.
Funny, I know we spoke just before we came on to do it. that was one of those things where we changed the size of it and even the font, and we were going to handwrite it and do all sorts of things. And we ended up doing it 100 times. And I think probably part of that is because when we were doing it, I was sitting in front of a big screen and literally closer than a front row going, this is great, without going all the way back. And then weirdly, it changed size again on my computer screen, right? And then I watched on my telly, it was tiny, and then we watched it somewhere else, and it was all right. That was something I put in the script at a really, really early stage. These chapters of, it was like that's why it's got date on it, January something, and then it's got a little title, as if he's writing it in his journal, or is it his journal? Is it somebody else's? It's the day and the yeah. I mean, we did try one where it was massive, and then it was a shock when it came on screen. So it was finding that happy medium. But I think when it comes to subtitling, we're going to have to write them in every other language anyway, massive at the bottom. So that'll be the opportunity to change, to make it a bit. There's also a fashion now to make things like that really big. I think, we did try it, and then it was really in your face.
I mean, I will say I am basically blind, so I can't even see. I sit in the front row to be able to see a film, and I will always miss those physical cues. Sometimes when someone turns around and they've got a scowl on their face, I'd be like, oh, why is that person shooting at them? And it was just like, I missed the visual, like, fuck you, you know what I mean? And all of this. So I can't see subtitles. And so, yeah, those, look, I imagine no one else, I didn't hear anyone else in the screen, like, ugh, you know what I mean? Moan about that thing. But it's just, yeah, I couldn't see it. And it's just a frustration I always have, because I'm just like, oh, it's a big screen. Can't we just make this stuff bigger?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point, because again, I would do the same thing. But even my mother and my grandmother and all that, they've got, they pretend they don't, and they're like, what? I'm like, okay, fine, yeah. I mean, I've because I used to joke about all these. You get some independent films that have done the credits so small.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You really look at it, and it's all very nicely designed. And don't get me wrong, it's beautiful if it's in a little magazine there. But when you really want to read it, and I think we did start off with something really tiny. And Gwen, who was doing the online, helping with the online, the colorist, was just like, I can't read that. So we played them all up again, and again came down to happy medium. But it's yeah. I mean, the main title we made pretty big, Shep.
I was able to work that one out. That was fine.
You know what you're watching when that comes up.
And even with the newspaper, when he's looking through the newspaper and he sees the job advert, I couldn't see the advert, but I could fathom what was going on. Right. So
that was a funny.
You can fathom what's happening with the way the actors and actresses are acting on the screen, you can work around a lot of that kind of stuff, Yeah,
I think it's that. I mean, that's an important point as well. I mean, everyone was briefed, and I call it the Netflix problem that we spoke about before, where if you're watching something on Netflix and you're making a cup of tea or you're looking at your phone, you're going to miss a moment, which is really, really important. So everyone the editor and everyone, you have to try and keep momentum on an idea all the way through, and referencing it in a performance or, some dialogue, so that everyone can catch up, because it is one of those films that if you don't do that and you miss a second early on, you're like, what? And what's he doing here? What? And why is that? Whose that dog? It's something. So it's it's interesting, and with that shot of the advert in the paper, we zoomed right in, and it still looked really tiny. I'm really rubbish at reading those things anyway. I mean, because we pay for such a small, tiny little bit of a piece of paper to put an ad in. But yeah, we got to again when it comes to subtitling, there'll need to be a lot of explanation in that. But yeah,
I think just a few things before I let you go, because I know I appreciate you giving me this time on a Sunday.
no, it's time for
it. But I think with it, I don't want to give anything away, but the kind of the thing that spurs Eric to go where he's gone, right? This whole kind of thing that's haunting him. Like, we never really, I think, find out what is true and what's not, which is very interesting, I feel. And even there's one suggestion of what happened that we kind of see towards the end of the film, right? I have to admit, when I saw that, I was a bit like, I mean, it's hard to blame him, right? You know what I mean? Because we see how, you know, the vertigo affects him and all of that throughout the film. So it's a bit like, oh, come on. I mean, yeah, it's a bit shitty what happened, but can we? But even that, you're like, but is that true? And it's like, it really plays with you as you're watching it. You're like, huh, do I like this dude? Like, what is true and what's not? Like, when you're filming this, right? And also when you're telling the actors and everything like that, how much do you explain what really happened? Like, what you feel the story really is? Or do you keep it, as you said, you tell different people different things. So do you tell, like, people, no, that person's evil, and then the other one, no, that person's a good guy. You know what I mean? So everyone's playing like they think they know, but they don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as mentioned before, I did give Tom one angle. This is your reality. Then Kate Dickey, I gave her one, and same with Gaia and Greta. They had their own brief, and they were all slightly different to one another. So depending on who you follow and who you want to listen to and who you want to believe. And the same again with the crew, with Study the DOP. I'll tell him, this has got to be creepy, even though he doesn't know. Tom isn't acting it as if it's creepy. So and then the production design will start doing things and adding in props, and the lighting will change and things like that. Because I find something's creepier when you take all the exposition out of it, and there's no explanation, there's no clear run. And you've just jumped into the story, and the less you know, the more paranoid you become. And I think I remember screening it to somebody, and they were so excited at the end, but also really angry at me, because they were like, "Okay, so is he dead, or is he mad, or is he actually gone to that island? This daughter, and she's real, and she's like that, or what's going on?" And I said, "Well, and I had written several different endings which would explain each point, but you remove that and then you allow an audience to, because that's the whole point of the film, you leave and then you discuss theories about it, because in these kind of things, the film itself is all about running away from guilt. But does he really need to be guilty about what happened? Because or is he, what is he really running away from? Did he have an affair? There's all sorts of different ideas and theories you come out, but if it's because he's suffering depression, and he tries to take his life near the beginning of the film and he can't. I remember a time I'd suffered from moderate depression, and I didn't feel depressed at the time. It was a financial thing, and the doctor said, "Oh, well, you need to take these tablets." So I was like, okay, fine. So I went away for about 3-4 weeks on these tablets, don't know what they were. And I became really paranoid. I remember walking down Clapham High Street, and a police siren went off right next to me. They always make you jump anyway. And I jump out. It was like the feeling like, oh my God, they've caught me. I'm like, hold on a minute, I haven't done anything. But I was completely like, and I remember holding on to that feeling and going, that's interesting, because, And I threw those tablets away in the bin, and I was all right after that. And you shouldn't do that. You're supposed to come off them gently. And but I was like, of all that entire experience of that I'll hold on to, and I'm going to put it in Shepherd, because he's running away from guilt, and then that gave me the whole angle and the background for his wife and that. But then also the question of, well, actually, did he do anything wrong or didn't he? And then when you take away all the explanations, which Stanley Kubrick did that with The Shining. So, his original script was full of explanations, and Jack would find the history of the hotel downstairs in a big red book with all newspaper cuttings, and that would set the background for the hotel. And there was all sorts of explanation in the original Shining script. And then the final 30, he just cut it all out. So you just have a guy who's gone mad there, and then you have that photo at the end, and you're like, what? Was he there? Is this just like, is that just some mad sort of... but that's what makes that film creepy. It's not a jumpy slasher or anything like that. It's just a completely creepy tone. And obviously that approach was inspiration for my approach to doing this.
Oh no, it was great. I loved the ending. Because it really because you're already just like, yo, what is going on? And then with the way it ends, you're like, fuck. It's kind of like at the end of Inception, you're like, did it stop? Did it fall? Did it spinning? Like, was that? And then people tell you, be like, no, I saw it stop. If you just at the very stop, no, it's still spinning, and your ending is kind of like that. It really makes you think. It just fucks with you. It's great.
Yeah, and again, I think it's thanks to people like Christopher Nolan and who can do that, and then it opens the door to filmmakers being able to make films like that again, because they've sort of allowed audiences to sort of go away and question things. Whereas beforehand, if I'd have done it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they'd be like, what? Because like, this isn't linear enough and to the point.
Oh, yeah, you needed a definitive ending, right?
Yeah.
Like, this person is good. This person is bad. This is what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And what's great is, things are opening up a lot more now. You've got some really, really good horror directors coming out of nowhere, making things like, if you got Ari Aster and films like Hereditary and Midsummer, that would have been a really difficult film to make 10 years ago. Yeah. Because people would be like, you weren't quite ready for it. But now audiences seem to want something that they're able to explore more on a more intellectual level, rather than just sort of, your straight narrative slash and jump and run. You need to offer a bit more. And I think that's probably why it's taken so long to get Shepherd off the ground, because it's always had that ambiguous ending. And so I think it's thanks to those guys that I was able to make it.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you did, man. Just before I let you go, right? I don't know if this is true, because a lot of things are on the internet that are not true, right? Believe it or not. But I think it was on Wikipedia I saw, right? It said something that the story behind this is, like, you took it from a real story, which is also the impetus of The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Is that
is true. I couldn't believe my ears because Robert Eggers made The Lighthouse. His first film was The Witch, which also starred Kate Dickie. And I remember her chatting away. I know. And I remember her chatting away, and I was like, she said, "Oh, where's the inspiration?" I said, "Well, I grew up in Wales, and we grew up with the story of the Smalls Lighthouse, and two guys went mad on the island, and one died, and and there's all sorts of it's the first time someone had sent a message in a bottle for help, and all sorts of stuff, because there is on a tiny little island off the coast of Wales, and it's a famous Welsh story, but." Never thought anyone would make a film about it. And when I wrote Shepherd, it was that basis of isolation. So that was the starting point, and that's where The Lighthouse comes from. in the film, and then it becomes a metaphor for something else. And you know, so I've changed the job. I've got rid of the other guy and replaced him with a dog, and I've done something entirely different. But that was the original spark. And I remember we were chatting away in the woods when we were filming a dream sequence, and Kate Dickey said, "Oh yeah, Robert's making a film about that." I'm like, "What?" And I had a complete meltdown. Going, "What? No, he's got a big budget to and but completely different film." But I also at the same time I was really excited because and he was going to do, you know, even though he said it in America or whatever, it was much closer to the actual story of. But I definitely took inspiration from it because I just thought it was great. But yeah, I went down the sheep route.
Yeah, a completely different film. But it is interesting, right? Because I think sometimes you have those moments where similar films come out around the same time. Like we had those 2 Robin Hood films come out, but Prince of Thieves was the one that really blew. Yeah. Oh god, I think there was one time there was 2 Snow White films, and people often think, "Oh, can't believe they copied," and it's just like, no, people make this shit in isolation. It's not like, wait, Robert Eggers is making. I'll show him.
Oh yeah, yeah. I honestly, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh no. But thankfully, you know, obviously he's a brilliant director. And his dialogue that he writes, I mean, it was completely insane and such an enjoyable film. But obviously, I'd gone a completely different route, and it's good. This film helped me find my voice, and you know, being able to translate atmosphere into visuals and something 3-dimensional. That was always my goal and my task. And some directors will, you know, really work with actors on dialogue and all sorts of sort of drama and things like that. And I like to sort of design something which is much more of a slow burning. Complete package from the sound to the visuals to the film and everything. It's and now I understand myself a lot more as a director. Instead of, you know, I mean, before this I was doing Vaseline commercials and whiskey and makeup tutor, all sorts of stuff. So you know, I couldn't quite find my voice doing those.
Yeah. I'm not sure an elongated stair scene works when you're selling Vaseline.
Yeah, might have the opposite effect from the intention. But yeah, I think that's what's lovely is I can see myself and I can see my voice, and you know, I'm not ripping anyone off, or I'm not trying to be someone. You know, it is very much me, and I think that's the proudest thing I can take away from it.
Yeah. So has it given you? Like, I feel that, yeah, you've got this confidence now, right? So has, like, making this, did it kind of give you an idea of where to go next, or if not where to go next, but things you want to push more? Be like, oh, it really worked when we did this. I want to try this on a larger scale. Or, oh, we couldn't do this to how I wanted it on this film, but on the next one, I really want to push this idea.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of the other things that I've written, I think I've written about 12 different things over the years. You know, whilst you're waiting for one thing to get, you may as well jump on and start writing another one. And everything else has got much more drama and characters into it. And I think the reason we really want to push this is because of its simplicity. One guy, Ireland, running away from something, goes mad. And the beauty and the cleanliness of that has allowed me to really focus on all the individual elements much more sharply. So it's given me a lot more confidence to go forward, and you know, I'll throw a few more actors in this time, and I'll have you know, a few more locations rather than this island. And yeah, I mean, there are some things I've written where I've looked at it, and when I have the opportunity to make this, and it was almost like it wasn't a blank check, but it was, I'd made a deal when I was making this zombie film with the producer that, you know, okay, I can't really direct another script like this, but I've got a bunch of scripts. He says, okay, we'll tell you what, we'll push aside, instead of my fee for the zombie film, we'll push it aside the next project and we'll make one of your scripts. So I was had to make a decision. And Shepherd was the one I'd definitely go. A, it was my first, but B, it was the simplest and in a way probably the most complicated to make, just because of the practicalities of it. And you really did have to nail the atmosphere and get all that across. So it was one of the easiest, but also one of the hardest things that I had on my list of things to make. So it set the foundation for everything else I want to do. It's going to make everything else easier. But there were other scripts that I read and I thought, if I get one element of this wrong, the whole thing will fall under the weight of it. So whereas now I'm like, right, now I've done Shepherd and I've learned X, Y, and Z, I'll be able to approach all those scripts now with a lot more confidence. So yeah.
Well, yeah, Shepherd is a great calling card, man. It's a great calling card. So let's let the people know when they can watch it, because yes, it is showing on Friday, right? So it premieres on the 14th of October at the London Film Festival, and then it shows again midday. I believe it's 2:45 on the Friday the 15th. But after that, I bet, is it the 5th of November it hits cinemas?
Yeah, so officially they've got the 5th of November. I think they were trying to push back a week because of Eternals and Spencer and all these films coming out, and there was a bit of breathing space, but whether that will happen or not, I'm not sure. But at the moment, it's definitely the 5th. And it's got a few film festivals, and it's got a few specials, Q&A specials before that as well for Halloween and whatnot coming up. But I'll let those different cinemas around the country announce that. And I'm just waiting to hear. At the moment, we're talking with distributors in the US. We're just negotiating a contract there, but it'll be theatrical over there at some point soon after. So it's right in the middle of it all now, and not exactly sure where it'll be, but I know it's going to be everywhere, which is amazing. I thought I might be able to get it on the Horror Channel at 3 a.m. if I was lucky. So I'm really lucky. It's
Hey, man, this and it is something that you worry, because we only saw the the HD version, but if that is just anything to go by, right, that in itself was incredible. So I don't even know what the super duper cut will feel like, because what we saw was just, it blew you away. So I think people have got a treat in store.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
No worries, man. How can people follow what you do?
Well, on Instagram and Twitter, I'm Russ Owen. So I jumped on board of those two things really early, so I was allowed a simple name. No numbers or anything after it. And I always put information of what I'm up to and where the film is there and what's coming next. And also, I think this week I'm filming an advert for a shopping centre in the West Midlands, so I'm sure there'll be a story about that up there as well.
Nice.
It makes all sorts.
Yeah, we'll see if you are nicer to dogs in that.
There's a few dogs that walk around that, so they're very nice. Yeah, those dogs have got an easier time of it.
Oh man, well, Russell, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Honestly, it was really good to watch your film. I hope that everyone at the London Film Festival enjoys it, and then everyone, if you didn't get a chance to see it there, 5th of November, mark it down, go watch it in the cinema, because you will not be disappointed.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right, and come back when you've got another project to talk about.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, hopefully trying to get something off the ground to start next year. So I'll keep you updated.
Fantastic, man, fantastic. All right, Russell, you take care.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.